Hello YouTubers and welcome to another Monday. We have made it to the beginning of another week. The clocks have went in a direction that gives us more sleep, or at least for one night it did yesterday, and it makes quite a difference to the light in the mornings, which can make quite a difference to the mental frame of mind, waking up not in the darkness but waking up in a little bit more light. But as always, every year it happens like that. But today, still dealing with the tooth infection, and I'm going over today, since I'm going over it today anyway in real life, just what to do when you're coming back from illness or whatever you've been dealing with, infection or whatever, and just to make sure that you're coming back at the right speed, etc. So let's go talk to the coaches and get ready. Oh yeah. Finished a little ergo there, and we'll talk about just the heart rates and my thoughts on that and why I did an erg, to see how I'm feeling, how my body is feeling post breakfast, because remember, food is fuel. Oh yeah! And we've made it outside to play with Yam, and here comes Maya as well.
Hello. Hello. Oh God.
Yeah. But we've had breakfast, we've fueled up, because remember, food is fuel, and we're talking today about that, dealing with post-illness and training and doing, what should you do? Well, first things first, obviously speak to your doctor and make sure you're all ready to go before you do get going. One huge tip is keeping track of your heart rate, your resting heart rate or your waking heart rate. So then you can, usually when you're getting ill, your body's extra fatigued or too fatigued, your heart rate will increase, or your resting heart rate will increase. And then if it goes out of a certain band, I think generally that band changes person to person. So if it goes outside the band, probably 10 to 15 beats above normal, then generally that means something's not quite right and you have to back off. And so mine was higher last week and it's come back down today, and then today, since the heart rate's back down to normal, did a monitored erg, so just making sure, like keeping a track of my heart rate. As you saw, the heart rate averaged below 140, which is normal UT2 for me. Obviously it was a shorter erg, it felt fine, felt normal, felt like UT2 or felt like steady state. So that's really important, making sure you're honest with yourself. So what's the heart rate? That's a really easy way to say it. If it's too high, it's too high. If it's too low, or if it's in the range, it's good. And with the effort, you really have to say, okay, is that an honest steady state, or whatever you're doing, is that an honest effort for what it normally is? And if it's a yes, then progress can be made. But obviously working with the coaches and your doctor to figure out what that progress is, whether that's progressing back to your full training or doing more stuff. But again, it's quite a difficult thing to do so I've got trials this weekend, so want to get back quickly, but obviously not too quickly that I end up overdoing it and then taking more steps back than I would have if I just took an extra day. So communicating with the doctors, communicating with the coaches to just make sure that I'm on the right path forward, not too steep but not too shallow as well. But now it is time to keep playing with Yam and Maya. Maya! Maya!
Hello.
Oh yeah! And now, after some downtime between sessions, we're going to do another one. Again, keeping the intensity low, keeping an eye on the heart rate to make sure that is all a-okay. So let's get to it. And we've made it outside of the club for another day on. A little bit of a different one today because essentially a lot less training than normal because I'm trying to make sure I'm okay for building up. So 2 shorter, steady sessions to assess where I am, and the assessment will continue for a day or so, and then talking to the doctors, talking to the coaches, making sure we're all on the same page about what's going forward or how I'm doing going forward, to make sure that at the weekend, if I'm doing trials, then I'm ready to do trials, and if I'm not doing trials, then I know the plan going forward, why I wouldn't do trials. So we don't want a repeat of last week's 2K, where we think the infection was just taking that sort of edge off that you need for a 2K. And really it's only, like I said, last Friday, I went quite a lot slower, so 15 seconds off what I was now 4 weeks ago. But you only need that couple of percent where the infection, that's what the infection can do. But how do you come back after injury, illness, whatever it is, or even just time off, or like taking time off from the sport in general, and you really have to make sure that you come back in the right way. And what I mean by come back in the right way, you don't come in trying to do everything at once. Like at the start of the season, you want to make sure that if you haven't done any training before, or not a lot of training before the start of the season, you want to build into the start and then keep consistently stepping forward. And it's the same coming back from an illness, or coming back from time off, or coming back from injury. The chances of overdoing it increase with the amount of time that you've taken off increases. So when you're off with illness, you want to make sure when you do come back that you are not ill anymore, that you've recovered from the illness, you've given your body enough time to recover. And so that's what we were doing, that's what we did over the weekend. So on Friday I missed the training, and then we decided to miss it on Saturday to give me an extra day, but then we had Sunday off, so it actually gave me an extra 2 days to help recover, and it also meant that I had 3 days of the antibiotics doing their thing, rather than getting a little bit interfered if I tried to do any training there. So I really recommend making sure, so say you have 3 days off, and you're that little bit like, I could go to training today, but I'm not 100% sure, take the extra day, take those 4 days, because in the grand scheme of things, that 4 days could mean that you perform really well the next week. If you do 3 days, it could mean that by the weekend, you're out of gas again. So it is a really fine line, and obviously I'm not a doctor, so I recommend speaking to your doctor, speaking to your coach about your specific situation, but it is a really big thing when you do come back, make sure you come back when you're ready, not because you're feeling the pressure from coming back for something, for a test or an interview or whatever it is it might be. Like I've got trials this weekend and I want to get to do trials, but I don't want to come back too early and then get to trials and pull even slower than I did last week, because that would look even worse than last week. So keeping an eye on that, keeping an eye on the coaches. So today, intensity wise for the training, when you do come back, it's keeping it lower and then building up from there, making sure you can handle the low intensities before you move up. So today for me, just UT2 or steady state, and making sure that my heart rate is in the right zones for me. So that means for my UT2, for a longer UT2, maybe 16K, 20K, it'll be probably pushing 150, but the shorter ones, it'll be below 140. So today that was the case with my short UT2 sessions, or my steady state sessions. So that means that my body seems to be in a good place, or at least in a place where it's ready to step on a little bit. So that's tomorrow, talking to the coaches, talking to the doctors, and we can try a little bit of intensity, because sometimes what you find with coming back from illness is you feel recovered and you feel ready to go to do low intensity, but then as soon as you add some high intensity, the wheels fall off again. So really taking it nice and easy, or nice and controlled up the intensities, to make sure that at each intensity you are good to go. And also it's trying not to fool yourself, kid yourself when you do go up the intensities. You want to make sure that your heart rate, that your perceived exertion and all that is normal. If it isn't normal, then try your hardest not to, okay, I'm a tough person and I can push through this. There's no reason to push through it. Just make sure that you are recovered, you are rested, you are ready to go for all intensities, and make sure that all of the heart rate or the perceived exertion, or if you're lucky to get the lactic acid level blood testing, make sure that's all normal, so that when you are coming back, you are good to go. Because like I've said, just taking that extra day or half day, or maybe building up the intensity that little bit slower, can do you much better in the long term, rather than trying to get back that day earlier in the short term and then causing issues in only a month or so's time when you run out of gas again. But that will be it for today's episode, Yamsquad. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. So a little bit of some smaller training and just trying to get back to where I was a week or so ago, before my tooth was all getting frustrated and annoyed, and then making sure with the antibiotics, stay on them, run the course as well always. If you start a course of antibiotics, finish the course of antibiotics, because you might feel fine maybe with a couple of days of antibiotics left, and then you end up saying, oh, I don't need the other 2 days, but it is a course of antibiotics, not half a course or whatever it is. But again, I'm not a doctor, so listen to your doctors. If they say stop the course, obviously. But as always, Yamsquad, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and stay tuned for the rest of the week to see what we're doing for trials. I want to make a video on the British rowing trials in general, to sort of the first trial to December trials, February trials, etc., what it all entails, especially coming in or in Olympic year, how that differs from a normal year, and we'll see how the videos change or may not change through the week as I get back to not being ill and getting this tooth sorted. And I will see you tomorrow.